The second critical choice that I made on my journey was to commit to a two-way agreement. And that agreement was between me and my sister and her husband. And we really entered into almost a near contractual agreement. I now know over the last 25 years since then that we all enter into two-way agreements, informally and formally, all the time. What I experienced way back then, and I'm so grateful I did experience this in my early 20s, is that the power of the agreement is through the commitment of it. And for me, once I chose to commit, I had to actually choose to commit to the agreement. Once I chose to commit to the nuances of that agreement, my feeling of, oh my God, I have to do these things really transformed to, I want to do these things. And at that time in my life, what I experienced through that commitment is the joy in the ordinary. And I've kept that with me forever. So let's talk a little bit about two-way agreements. Will you share with us one of the agreements that you've entered into, or even just your thoughts on two-way agreements and what you give and what you get?
Definitely. And I think this is almost mutually exclusive with love. And I think, we'll probably talk about that a little bit later. But, I think of my first true two-way agreement as the time that I moved in with my wife. And for anybody that's moved in with somebody that you haven't lived with before, that's no family, even if it's just a roommate, there are significant adjustments that you need to make in your life. Your habits do not always align with their habits, and their habits don't always align with yours. And so when we first moved in together, it was a struggle. I think it is for a lot of people. She grew up in a household where everything had to be everything had to be very neat, very perfect. Everything had to be squeaky clean. I was a rambunctious kid. I was always out playing basketball, rolling around in the dirt, whatever. I didn't really mind that.
You were upside down while your mom was talking to you.
Yeah, upside down while I'm trying to learn something. Yeah, I was all over the place. And so that led to, lots of messes around my house. And, my poor mom and dad couldn't keep up with the amount of messes between my sister and myself that we would make. And so I was okay with, our house being a little lived in, as people like to say. And she was very particular, and things have to go in a certain place and look a certain way all the time. And that led to what I now realize is an unfair division of responsibility. My expectation and, my standard of living in my house was far different than hers. And so instead of kind of having that, mutual respect when we first started, I had the viewpoint of, oh, if she wants the house to look that way, then, she can do it. That's okay.
Yeah, right.
I now realize that is totally insane. Like totally insane. We both live in the house, and we actually have to create a new vision of what we want our lives to look like. And I think that's where we kind of tie back to love is, this isn't really about how I want our house to look like or how she wants our house to look like. She has this vision. I love her with all of my heart. I want to make her happy. So that's when we sat down and we said, okay, we need a better division of responsibility, right? So really sitting down and committing and saying like, hey, I'll do the laundry, the trash, this, that, and everything else. And, your main ones will be this, this, and this. And, it's funny when you're a young and first moving in, that sounds like a good plan. And then, life hits you. Stability doesn't work almost at all. And so that's when it comes down to really having that conversation of, hey, we'll both do our absolute best, but it's not going to be 50-50 every day of the week.
Yeah.
Every month of the year, every year of this decade. Sometimes it's going to be 90-10. Sometimes it's going to be 100-0. And you just need to have some love and some grace during that time to pick up the slack when your partner's going through a really, really tough time. And vice versa. I've always struggled to kind of receive any sort of help in my life. And so when she would do things for me, it would make me very, very anxious. And I would be like, oh my God, I feel terrible because she thinks she has to do these things for me. But for her, that was an act of love. And so now we have this, it's kind of like a fun game. And it's based off of what an ancient philosopher, Rufus, once said is, there are really some foundations to love that you have to have. And once you meet those points of mutual caring, you should strive to outcompete each other every single day. And so we have this fun game now in our lives, and it will get very interesting in the next months as we expect a kid, is we try to outcompete each other every single day. Even in the small, mundane little things, it's now become more of a lighthearted competition of like, who can do more for each other? How can we continue to compete and express our love as we move forward in our relationship? And, she wins most days. Editor, as am I, but, again, some days it's 90-10, some days it's 50-50. It really all depends on what phase of your life that you're in.
So the example that you just gave, and I'm just going to get right into it about choosing to give and receive love. Yeah. You say, I love her with all of my heart, and I choose to give love the verb by doing more physically in the house in a way that she will appreciate. I think those two things are mutually exclusive. I don't know that you might love her with your whole heart and still choose not to give all your love in that way. And that is my point. Like, that is my message. When all is said and done, you are choosing love the verb, and it manifests for you and your wife as taking out the trash one day, maybe cleaning up, vacuuming another day. And it also manifests in the understanding and the embracing that it's not 50-50, And then I'm just totally repeating what you said. Then you're upping the ante. And I'm going to say to everyone in my community, take this from Matt. You're upping the ante by saying, not only am I going to give, but I'm choosing to receive all her love, because that's kind of harder. And we're going to compete on who can give and receive more. That's amazing.
And, the other thing that, as we're kind of talking this through, I'm thinking is this is, love expressed in a romantic relationship, right? And I think when people hear the word love, and you talk about love being a choice, which I 1000% agree with. It is
across our lives.
1000% choice that we have to choose, by the way, every single day. It's not like a one-time commitment. It is a daily moment to moment to moment to moment commitment.
100%.
But I think when a lot of people hear the word love, they think, oh, those are deep romantic feelings for a partner,
right?
A child, or a mom.
Or child, right?
And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there are a couple of different phases we have of love. One is certainly, actually, I think that the foundational component of love is actually love for ourselves. And I would actually argue that you can't have any of the other forms of love until you actually do the work to love yourself. And we can talk about that more. It's interesting. From there, you have those romantic feelings for potentially a partner. You have those feelings of protection and intense care for a child or and mother or somebody else in your life that's very close or friends. But then one thing that I really, really like, Barbara Fredrickson talks about this a lot, is micro moments of positivity resonance. And these are what I like to think of as like micro moments of love. And this is for everybody. So if you're out in the store and you see, you're going to check out, places still have checkout counters, and you come across the cashier, instead of just, sitting there on your phone scrolling while they're all of your things, how can you make that person's life, day,
micro moment?
And it's not as easy as just a quick smile, asking how their day was, being truly invested in that 1, 2, 3 moments that you have with that person. And so I think oftentimes we kind of put love in a box and we say, love is only for my family, my friends, my kids, my partner. When really we have enough love to kind of go around for everybody we come across in our lives.
Okay. Wait, but hold on, because I want more time with you. Because what you just said is, I think love begets love. And there was, for so long in my life, that I believed I had a finite capacity to give love. It's like I only had so much inside of me, if you think about it as a physical manifestation. And I was afraid that if I gave, not only would it be, not received in the way that I wanted to, but I was afraid that it would go away. But in fact, we know that the more you give, the more you have. It's like it fills it up, right?
Absolutely. And eventually you get to the point where, and I like to talk about this quite a bit, is like you're talking about, is generative. It's not
yes.
It actually is like a bank account, right? So when you're taking a look at your bank account, and there's kind of one train of thought that you can overdraft on, right? If you give it away, you're going to overdraft, and then you're going to get hit with a whole bunch of fees, and then you have to fight the bank trying to get your money.
And if you're like me, you're not looking at those little hidden fees that are coming.
Exactly. And then you end up in a weird place. But I think on the flip side of that, if you kind of think of love as something that by that I don't mean that you hoard love, but you look for love in the little different places, and you kind of build those up. At some point, your bank account, although maybe it's not much, so maybe not the best analogy, it'll start generating interest, right? And so that interest or that love becomes generative. And over time, you're going to build up this big wealth of love, which, to be completely honest, I think is probably the most noble thing that we can do.
I embrace and believe that with my whole heart. So for everyone watching, think love the verb across your whole lives. It manifests all the time at work. It manifests all the time. Whether we choose to actually give in that moment or we choose not to is up to us. I mean, whether it's listening to somebody, giving constructive feedback, opening up the door, sitting next to someone, whatever it is. I had this whole thing I posted a while ago that Jenny and I posted around me being at the Kohl's line. So to your point, but it was the Amazon return line, and how I didn't give love, but somebody else in the line did. So it's all around us.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Choose and Become interview series. To check out more episodes, go to www.trishkendall.com/podcast, or go to any of your favorite podcast channels, including YouTube, under Trish Kendall Speaks, and you'll find this interview and more. Choose and become.